There comes a quiet moment in a man's life that almost never gets spoken aloud. You could be anywhere ordinary: a coffee shop, a dinner gathering, standing on a street corner, and a younger woman looks directly at you. Not beyond you, not through you, at you. And before your thoughts have time to interfere, something inside you responds instinctively. Then the mind steps in. You dismiss it immediately. You tell yourself you imagined it, that she couldn't possibly mean anything by it, that whatever you felt came from fantasy, not reality. So you bury the moment before it has the chance to embarrass you. You continue with your day, yet something stays with you afterward. That lingering feeling is not narcissism, it is not desperation, and it is not delusion. It is your nervous system recognizing something before your insecurities had the opportunity to shut it down, and what it recognized was real. This is not one of those conversations that pretends age means nothing. It does matter. Pretending otherwise ignores reality instead of understanding it. But age matters in a far different way than the culture around you has trained you to believe. You were handed a narrative long ago, a narrative claiming that once a man crosses a certain invisible threshold, authentic attraction from younger women becomes unrealistic, inappropriate, or impossible. That narrative has repeated itself so many times that many men no longer question it. But repetition is not truth. And that story was never rooted in real psychology to begin with. It was noise. Noise that has caused countless men to misunderstand something deeply important about themselves and about attraction itself. Because there is a reason, a deeper reason than status, confidence, charm, or strategy, that some younger women continually feel drawn back toward an older man. We are going to reach that reason. But before we do, you need to understand something she often cannot fully explain herself. Most of the time, she does not consciously know why she feels what she feels. She only knows the sensation of it. So, first, we need to clear away the static. Only then can you hear what is actually happening underneath all of this. You already know how society reacts to the subject. You have seen the expressions heard, the subtle judgments disguised as concern, questions that are not asked to understand, but to shame. Maybe over time you absorbed some of that judgment yourself. The voice that whispers this is inappropriate. This is denial. This is a man refusing to accept his age. That voice speaks with certainty, which is why so many men accept it without examining it. But there is one thing that voice never truly addresses. Attraction is not primarily intellectual, it is physiological. It happens inside the nervous system long before it becomes a social opinion. When a woman feels pulled toward a man, her body does not first perform a mathematical calculation. She is not mentally subtracting birthdays and generating compatibility percentages before she responds emotionally. What she responds to first are signals. Signals of emotional steadiness, signals of groundedness, signals of safety, signals that reveal whether a man is deeply present or merely performing a version of himself. Signals that answer a quiet question inside her body. Do I feel more at ease near this person or less? And those signals are rarely determined by age alone. They are determined by what a man has become. The real issue is not your age. The issue is that you have been trying to measure yourself using a framework designed for an entirely different form of attraction. A framework built around novelty, competition, speed, appearance, and performance. And if you judge yourself only through that lens, you will always feel disadvantaged. But that is not the lens many women are actually using. The very things you have quietly apologized for over the years. Your calmness, your patience, your lack of urgency, the grounded certainty you carry, are not weaknesses disguised as virtues. For some women, those qualities are precisely the attraction. Most men fundamentally misunderstand what is happening when a younger woman feels genuinely drawn toward an older man. They assume she is settling. They imagine she is making some hidden compromise, tolerating the age difference in exchange for security, maturity, or stability. They assume the attraction is incomplete from the beginning, that eventually the gap will become too large to emotionally sustain. But for many women, that is not the experience at all, especially for women who have moved beyond purely novelty-driven attraction. The qualities shaped through genuine life experience become central, not secondary. And in many cases, the years themselves are not the obstacle to attraction. They are the source of it. Think about what time quietly develops inside a man who has actually lived consciously. It teaches him how to sit comfortably in a room without needing ownership of it. It teaches him how to let moments unfold naturally without forcing outcomes. It creates emotional weight. not heaviness, but gravity. The feeling that this man has already survived enough that he no longer needs constant validation to feel solid within himself. Now consider what a woman's nervous system is truly searching for beneath the surface, not what looks impressive publicly, not what earns approval socially, but what feels safe internally. It is searching for that gravity, that steadiness, that sense of emotional ground. The younger man entering a room trying to establish himself, competing subtly for attention, performing confidence while carrying hidden anxiety, he can absolutely be attractive. He can be exciting, magnetic even. But there is another kind of presence entirely, the man who enters quietly, the man who laughs softly without needing the room to follow him, the man who does not constantly monitor how he is being perceived. The man whose presence has substance without demanding recognition for it. She notices that man, often before she understands why, and something inside her begins to relax. But attraction does not deepen from noticing alone. What transforms a passing moment into something she keeps thinking about afterward is more subtle. Many men assume attraction is primarily visual for women in the same way it often is for men. But for many women, especially emotionally mature women, attraction is deeply tied to experience rather than appearance alone. Specifically, the emotional experience of being near someone. And that experience is built from countless small subconscious signals. The rhythm of his speech. Is he speaking slowly because he is grounded or slowly because he lacks confidence? There is a difference. One feels calm, the other feels uncertain. Does he communicate naturally, or does every sentence feel engineered to create an impression? Can silence exist comfortably in the interaction, or does he rush to fill every pause because stillness makes him uneasy? Then there is the quality of his attention. Does he actually see her, or is he evaluating her? Is she being experienced as a real person or as an audience whose approval he hopes to secure? And perhaps most important of all, there is the absence of performance. This is difficult to explain intellectually, but incredibly easy to feel emotionally. A man who is performing himself, carefully shaping every word and gesture to maintain attraction, creates subtle tension in a woman's nervous system. Even when she cannot explain why, part of her remains alert, constantly assessing whether what she is experiencing is authentic. That internal monitoring becomes exhausting. It slowly drains the ease required for genuine connection. But a man who is simply present, not adjusting himself moment by moment for approval, not managing perception, not chasing validation, creates the opposite effect. The tension disappears, the checking stops. Her nervous system relaxes. Sometimes she notices this in tiny ways. She realizes she has not looked at her phone once during the conversation. She notices she is no longer bracing herself emotionally. She feels unexpectedly calm, not because he entertained her, not because he impressed her, but because nothing in him was pressuring her to manage his emotional state. And that feeling stays with her. There is another quality many older men carry without fully understanding its impact: their relationship with silence. Most men fear silence during interaction. They experience pauses as failure, something to repair immediately. They rush toward another joke, another story, another topic, because stillness feels threatening. But women often test silence unconsciously, not strategically, naturally. Sometimes she simply becomes quiet after something meaningful. Sometimes she pauses because she is thinking. Sometimes she stops speaking just to feel what the space between you feels like. And how a man responds to that silence reveals far more than polished conversation ever could. A man who becomes uncomfortable immediately reveals something important: that he needs constant stimulation and reassurance to remain emotionally regulated. But a man who can remain present in silence without scrambling to escape it communicates something entirely different. He communicates inner steadiness. He communicates that silence does not frighten him, that he does not require constant engagement to feel secure. She becomes quiet. He stays grounded. He does not panic verbally. He does not rush to rescue the moment. He simply remains there comfortably. And suddenly the silence itself becomes connection instead of distance. She feels it. This is not manipulation. It cannot be faked for long. It is the natural result of a man who has lived enough life that quiet no longer feels empty to him. It feels spacious. And now we arrive closer to the deepest layer beneath all of this. Because underneath the calmness, the patience, the emotional steadiness, the comfort with silence, there is something even more important these qualities are pointing toward. The younger woman who finds herself genuinely drawn toward an older man is usually not acting from naivety. In many cases, she is responding from experience. Many of these women have already lived through relationships that looked ideal externally but felt emotionally exhausting internally. Relationships where attraction existed but emotional stability did not. Relationships where love required constant emotional management, where disagreements became destabilizing, where moods shifted unpredictably, where she spent more time regulating the relationship than actually relaxing inside it. She knows what that feels like in her body. And once someone has experienced enough instability, steadiness becomes profoundly attractive, not intellectually, physiologically. So when she encounters a man whose emotional structure already feels grounded, a man who can disagree without escalating, who can hold his perspective without needing domination, who remains emotionally balanced without requiring constant reassurance, her nervous system reacts first with relief. He disagrees calmly instead of defensively. He stays connected instead of withdrawing. He does not turn conflict into a battle for superiority. And she notices something unfamiliar. I don't feel emotionally unsafe around him. That realization matters more than most men understand, because emotional safety is not softness, it is steadiness. It is knowing she can remain fully herself without constantly managing the emotional reactions of the person beside her. And this leads to perhaps the deepest thing she is truly watching for. More than status, more than appearance, more than confidence. She is watching to see whether her full self disturbs your equilibrium. Most men unconsciously create pressure around women they desire. Not intentionally, but the pressure exists. Their energy shifts depending on her approval. They become subtly reactive to her moods, her opinions, her warmth, her distance, and women feel that pressure immediately. So she adapts herself. She softens opinions, reduces intensity, edits emotions, becomes easier to manage, smaller. But a man who has developed genuine self-possession does not create that pressure. When she expresses something difficult, he does not flinch. When she becomes emotional, he does not withdraw. When she says something sharp, contradictory, or provocative, he does not become threatened by her complexity. He simply remains grounded. He allows her to exist fully without needing her to become easier for him. And that experience is rare. She says something vulnerable while quietly watching his reaction. He does not recoil. He does not emotionally disappear. He does not rush to neutralize tension because discomfort scares him. He simply receives her honestly and calmly, and she relaxes more deeply because she did not have to take herself back. This is what many women are actually longing for beneath the surface. Not a man who dazzles them, a man around whom they do not have to shrink. And now we arrive at the real center of everything we have discussed. Beneath attraction, beneath age, beneath chemistry, there is one silent question her nervous system is constantly asking. Do I feel more like myself when I am near this man? Not more impressive, not more validated, more herself, more alive, more open, more emotionally expanded rather than emotionally managed. Because real attraction at its deepest level is not measuring age. It is measuring expansion versus contraction. Does proximity to this person allow me to unfold more fully or force me to become smaller in order to maintain connection? And what you may have spent years unknowingly building is the ability to create space for another person to expand safely inside your presence. That quality is extraordinarily rare at any age. She stops over explaining herself around him. She laughs more naturally. Or sometimes she becomes quiet in a way that feels peaceful instead of tense. Not because he performed something extraordinary, but because nothing in him was resisting her existence. At this depth, the age gap is no longer the thing being measured. What matters is the emotional experience of being near him, the steadiness, the emotional spaciousness, the feeling that his presence neither controls her nor abandons her. And qualities like that do not belong to youth or age. They belong to emotional maturity. Which is why the real question was never, am I too old for this? That question points toward the wrong standard entirely. The deeper question is this: have I become someone whose presence allows another person to feel more fully themselves? If the answer is yes, and for many men who have lived honestly through their years, it is, then what you carry is not something to apologize for. It is something profoundly valuable. And the right woman does not merely tolerate it, she feels it before she can fully explain it. You do not need to advertise this. You do not need to justify it, prove it, or package it attractively. You only need to stop apologizing for the years that shaped it. Because what you carry now is not the fading remains of something better left in the past. It is what those years were quietly building all along. And the men who finally understand this, the men who stopped competing inside games that were never designed for them, discover something unexpected. It was never the age difference she was truly responding to, it was the gravity.